Joining me right now is California Congressman Darrell Issa, a member of the Judiciary and Foreign Affairs Committees. Congressman, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me on, Maria, and thanks for continuing to cover this amazing examples of corruption and deception.
Yeah, it's extraordinary to me that now we learn of these audio tapes. How will you and your colleagues get your hands on these audio tapes? Will we actually see these audio tapes and hear them? What was said as this document reveals that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden each accepted $5 million apiece in a bribery scheme.
Well, usually if it's insurance, that those individuals are going to want to use the insurance now in return for a deal. Now, if we were dealing with the Department of Justice, they would make a deal for sure. The question is, will they make a deal when it's their boss that might be implicated? And that may be a real challenge to get DOJ to do what they would normally do in a criminal investigation. Just as normally in a criminal investigation, if you get a laptop that you know includes crimes on it, you don't sit on it and then deny its authenticity. So a lot depends on the Department of Justice, and we have little confidence right now in that DOJ.
So where will this go then? I mean, we understand from this document that now the House Oversight Committee has seen that there was a bribe taking place. We also know from the bank records that James Comer has released that there are 20 shell companies that the Bidens were using to accept money from foreign nationals and distribute it to Biden family members. Will you be able to get to the bottom of this?
Well, we are getting to the bottom of it, Maria, and one of the things that you have to look at is Hunter Biden and the rest of the family, his brother Jim and so on, they did business in the worst possible areas, Russia, China, and yes, Ukraine. They did it with some of the worst people, the sleaziest people, and they took unreasonable amounts of money for the services that Hunter supposedly was going to do. So you have all the elements of bribes. You know, one of the things that concerns me is this is one recording, but the standard practice that you see our CIA and other governments doing is they give you money, they record it, and then they own you. And it's that owning of the president, the owning of the president not wanting to and wanting to conceal people who have the goods on them that put us most vulnerable. That which is open, you might prosecute. That which is closed and somebody as powerful as the President of the United States wants to protect, they will do anything, including, quite frankly, not prosecute Ukraine war with Russia the right way, not deal with China the right way, things that can actually affect national security. So the biggest question is the President of the United States compromised by this and other deals in which foreign nationals have the goods on him?
Yeah, I know, but it's not going anywhere. We keep seeing evidence of it, and yet who gets indicted? President Trump. He's appearing in a Miami federal court today at 3 o'clock. He's going to be arraigned on 37 charges related to his handling of classified documents, as you know. The former president wrote on Truth Social, quote, "Now that the seal is broken, I will appoint a real special prosecutor to go after the most corrupt president in the history of the United States, Joe Biden, the entire Biden crime family." Congressman, what are we supposed to believe here? That there's an indictment that appears damning for President Trump, but it's coming from a potentially corrupt DOJ who is ignoring crimes in plain sight of a sitting president.
Maria, that's exactly the case. There is a double standard. Hillary Clinton clearly, knowingly, and willfully violated the law, and that led to the potential compromise of classified documents. She then tried to obstruct the discovery of it. She then was allowed to have her attorneys look over and decide what the government got. That's wrong. We said it was wrong at the time. Should they have had the same standard, though, in discovery with the former president in getting the documents they believed he had, that he believed he declassified, that they believed were still classified? Legitimate debate, handled completely differently. So America's seeing a double standard. Perhaps President Trump should have aggressively gone after Hillary Clinton. He didn't. Should Joe Biden be allowed to aggressively go after the former president? you know what, I don't want to be part of a banana republic. I don't want to be part of a place where every president doesn't want to leave office without their successor being picked, because that makes them vulnerable. That's not America as we have it. We should have one standard. No one should be above the law, but there should be one law and not a changing law depending upon who's in the office of the president.
Well, that's right. And none of us want to live in this banana republic, but increasingly it is feeling like we need a complete overhaul of these agencies that we're all losing trust in. What is your assessment of this now in terms of the indictment of President Trump? The indictment appears damning. Where is this going? Is this going to affect his ability to run again? I mean, that's the whole point, isn't it?
Well, look, they're trying to both select the president as the person they run against and then damage him. This is a strategy I've seen in the past in California and other places. You know, one of the things when I oversaw the National Records Act and obviously the classification process as oversight chair that now James Comey does, is we looked at a lot of these problems of cleaning up federal records, and we did a lot of work. Even before I was chairman, they were doing a lot under George W. Bush. We need to double down on getting that part fixed, and I'm sure Vice President Pence and others would happily agree that we need to do a better job of cleaning and sanitizing records that presidents and vice presidents and others take when they leave office. But having said that, back to the point, we need to have a single standard. If the standard is that a president or a vice president or even a senator, in the case of Biden, is held harmless when inadvertently you find documents that he believes were declassified, that has to be the standard. And as we go into the election, I'm going to keep calling for a single standard. And you either go back and disqualify Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, which you can't really do, or you recognize that if you change the standard for Donald Trump, you can't change it retroactively. And that's the message I think we're all going to see is I'm happy to change and up the standard, but let's up the standard going forward and not look backwards and say, well, we're going to change it just because we don't want to run against successfully against Donald Trump.
Yeah, but Congressman, at the same time, look, you lived through the Russia collusion story. I mean, it looks like they keep getting away with things. And this is important because we're talking about a sitting president, Joe Biden, accepting money from our #1 adversary. And now the Chinese Communist Party is getting more aggressive than ever. Not just a spy balloon traveling throughout the country, sending military secrets back in real time, but that spy center set up in Cuba. The White House claiming yesterday it's confident that it can protect America's national security secrets despite the spy base in Cuba. I spoke with the former director of national intelligence, John R-Calif, on Sunday about this. Here's what he said. Were you aware of the Cuba spy center when you were director of national intelligence for Donald Trump?
Well, there wasn't one, Maria. The idea that this kind of surveillance platform was present and being allowed is just, is just absurd. But yet again, the strategy for the Biden administration is deny it until we can't deny it anymore, then find a way to blame the Trump administration for it.
And yet, Congressman, that's exactly what they're doing. Jackie Heinrich tried to follow up with John Kirby yesterday. He said, well, maybe they didn't look into it. I mean, they're trying to blame the Trump administration on China's aggression.
As they always will. But let's remember, on Friday they lied. On Monday they had to admit they lied. Right. And then they tried to take credit for that lying. Look, since John F. Kennedy, we have not tolerated something like this in Cuba, and we cannot tolerate it going forward.
All right, Congressman, we'll be watching your work on this. Thanks so much, Darrell Issa.